This is the smallest, most inconspicuous pony on the racetrack. It often struggles to maintain its balance on rainy days and on grass, almost falling even when walking. Despite this, it still takes each step toward the starting line. When the race begins, all the other ponies burst out like wild horses, seemingly unaffected by the weather. But there is no sign of Benbenzu. Everyone assumed it had fallen behind. However, just when everyone thought Benbenzu was lagging, it suddenly shot out from the inner side. It turned out that Benbenzu had been running on the muddy path. It looked as though it had failed at the start and got stuck in the mud, but in reality, this was just its unique training method. While the other horses ran on the grass, Benbenzu stuck to the muddy path, not only without any hindrance, but also maintaining a stable pace, and was less likely to fall. This special training had been provided by its coach, who specifically had Benbenzu practice on the muddy track. Benbenzu was not running on the grass, but rather on the muddy track meant for training. Others couldn't understand why Benbenzu was so slow, but in fact, this was its strength in the mud. Its hooves could easily sink into the earth, preventing it from slipping. Benbenzu had already adapted to running on muddy terrain through training. It thrived on the muddy track like a fish in water. After training, Benbenzu had perfectly found a racing style that suited it. It kept pace with the others, and by the time they entered the third turn, Benbenzu was neck and neck with the leader. Kia had always claimed he would defeat Benbenzu, yet Benbenzu still hadn't accelerated, remaining in 7th place. When they entered the 4th turn, Kia finally started to accelerate. He quickly maneuvered through the pack, getting closer to the leader. Benbenzu wasn't about to let him go easily. He followed closely, trying to pull ahead. However, during the final stretch, Nidorunikasu, under Kia's repeated whip strikes, suddenly gained more speed, easily overtaking Benbenzu. Though Benbenzu pushed himself to the limit, Nidorunikasu's speed and recovery put increasing pressure on him. Kia deliberately led Nidorunikasu onto the muddy path, blocking Benbenzu's way forward, forcing Benbenzu to run through the mud. Seeing this, Coach Shoudora was furious. It turned out that Kia had already figured out Benbenzu could only run on the muddy track, so he deliberately placed Nidorunikasu ahead of him to prevent Benbenzu from passing. Although Benbenzu had the potential to run faster, he was trapped on the muddy path, with mud obstructing his vision, and gradually slowing him down. Meanwhile, the other horses were closing in. Kia watched smugly, thinking victory was in his hands. However, with just 200 meters to go, Kia noticed Coach Shoudora looking increasingly anxious. This only excited Kia more. He thought this race would prove his horsemanship, and Benbenzu's training was clearly a failure. He was unwilling to admit any flaws in his riding technique, always thinking this race would redeem his reputation. But Nidorunikasu performed exceptionally well in the rain, seemingly unaffected by the harsh weather. This was also why Nidorunikasu was being noticed for the first time. In the heavy rain, Nidorunikasu seemed to handle it effortlessly, no matter how terrible the weather. The muddy track felt like home for Nidorunikasu. Every time it accelerated, it pulled away from the competition, quickly leaving the others behind. For Benbenzu, training on the muddy track had helped him adapt to this terrain, allowing him to stand out in this race. Though Benbenzu wasn't favored, he remained persistent, gradually finding his own path. Coach Shoudora had never underestimated any of the ponies. Through his grueling training, each pony was reborn in the fire. Every bit of effort in training was preparing for this race to prove themselves. From the unnoticed foal to the fierce contender on the track, Benbenzu's growth was not just about the improvement of his ability, but also the awakening of his inner will to fight. Though Benbenzu might not have won this race, his transformation had already made everyone take notice.